Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Heroic Efforts. Thank you all for joining us once again, and seeing us all get punished as we talk about this week's movie that I actually like. Sorry. We can just end the episode now. I am, of course, Andy Foreman. I'm sitting here with Mr. Martin Fisher.
Hello, hello.
And...
Holy shit, I forgot that's how he screams for like 5 fucking minutes.
And I'm sitting here with John Travolta's strongest soldier, Mr. Nick Talamante.
Don't put that on me. I ain't got nothing to do with that, man. I don't claim that guy or his bitch ass scream.
I was going to say, I'm the only one here who's seen The Fanatic, and I like it, but somehow that's you being John Travolta.
Yeah, don't pin that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. What's happening, everybody?
Yes, and because you clicked on this episode, you know what we're talking about this week. We are talking about the, I would say, slightly underappreciated 2004 Punisher film, directed by Jonathan Hensleigh and starring Thomas Jane. This is one of those ones that was coming out during the initial Marvel boom. 2003 had Hulk and Daredevil and X-Men 2. This year had The Punisher and Spider-Man 2. The next year had Fantastic Four. I'm pretty sure Blade Trinity came out around in one of those years. It was around the time that really a lot of stuff was dropping for Marvel for the first time, and it was that exciting time. We've talked about this on the show where it's like, dude, they're making a Punisher movie. Like, and it's like, and he's gonna have the skull. It's not just gonna be Dolph Lundgren in a black jacket. Like, it's So this is kind of an exciting one. This was one that I wasn't allowed to watch when I was younger because it was rated R. Ooh. So I didn't see it till like middle school, and I fucking adored it. I don't know about you guys, but I really have a soft spot for this film.
I'll just say, I fucking love this movie. I actually do also adore it very much so. I am a fan of all 3 Punisher movies, so they're varying qualities for sure, but this is definitely, in my opinion, the best movie of the bunch. It is what I think of when I think of Punisher adapted to film, and I very much enjoy Thomas Jane's performance. So he is in my head the Punisher of the movies. So
this is the first. This is like the only one of these where they tried to make an actual Punisher movie.
Yes.
One of the other 2 are basically like slightly higher budget, like exploitation, like direct to video.
We're making like a Dolph Lundgren vehicle, or we're making like straight to DVD.
yeah. Like, it is amazing that Punisher Warzone got a theatrical release.
Yeah,
but that's a future episode. Nick, how did you respond to this film as you rewatched it?
This is the first time I've seen it all the way through. And for me, I'm definitely the coldest out of everybody here on it. I think it has some charming moments, and I'll just say, just right off the bat, I think Thomas Jane is fucking great. He's definitely the best part of this movie by a long shot, and we'll get into more about him specifically later. But overall, I think it was fine. It was just okay to me. Like I said, it has some fun moments, and there are parts that I enjoy, especially when, Thomas Jane's just kind of doing his thing and being undoubtedly him the whole movie. But then it gets bogged down by some pretty, I think, goofy things. So we'll dive deeper into it so I can explain my thoughts further. But overall, it's fine. I'm not mad about it. And it's a certified Tubi movie. My boy Andy over here put me on because I was about to pirate this shit. I was like, okay, well, let me see, if I can survive some porn pop-ups real quick and try to watch this for the show. And Andy's like, it's on Tubi. So I'm like, oh, hell yeah. Let me check it out. Between all my, straight to fucking Tubi, ghetto cinema, I'm all about, this slop right in between. It fits right on in.
Have you seen the Michael J. White saving grandma fucking action movie that came out on Tubi a month ago?
Oh no, you already know I did. You already know I have. Stop playing with me.
Certified heroic efforts hero Michael J. White.
Yes.
Unironically, that's not even a joke.
See our Spawn episode, which this movie. I am not trying to insult it at all because I do love this movie. This movie kind of falls in the Spawn category for me. It's much, much, much better. If Spawn is copper tier, you know, like this is definitely like bronze or silver tier, but I think it falls into that category of where they tried too hard to make a movie that would appeal to everyone when these are characters that are just going to appeal to a certain type of viewer. And had they actually directed it towards those viewers more, it probably would have been more successful.
Yeah, and I think that'll be a discussion later on in the episode. Is the grittiness of what a Punisher comic is not so present in this film. So
well,
we should jump in really quickly by just giving like a brief rundown of the Punisher character, which, again, this guy's been around for over 50 years now. We're not going to go through all the little details, but the important thing to remember is that the Punisher started off as a Spider-Man villain. Like, it's that very, very, very famous cover of him with Spider-Man in his crosshairs. That's how the Punisher started, and he very easily could have become just lost to comic book history, like the Tarantula was a villain around that time. You know, the Jackal was a villain. So it's one of those things where people responded to him so strongly that pretty much right after he debuted in Spider-Man, he was brought back for a couple other appearances, and then pretty soon after given his own stories.
Yeah, and it's funny you bring up the Spider-Man issue, his first appearance, because I have a fond memory of that being like the one comic that was like continually in like recirculation to be like republished and given out for free to people, like kids and stuff.
Yeah.
I had like 5 copies of that one specific issue that were free copies included. I don't know what initiative that was, but I appreciated it.
Yeah, it's weird because the Punisher in that one is like such a boob. Yes. He's like the Jackal is basically like, "Hey, you've read the Daily Bugle. You know Spider-Man's a villain." He's like, "Yeah, you're right." And like the opening splash page. The opening splash page is like a ceramic statue of Spider-Man being shot by the Punisher. And then at the end of it, the Spider-Man goes, "Oh, well, they mend fences, or they come to an agreement or whatever." And he's like, "Why are you like this?" And the Punisher just goes, "That's a story for another day, chum." And he like walks away. It's like that typical.
Cut to everything that happens in the Punisher Max comics.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. He's like, "Oh, that I'll have to tell you another day, my friend." And so they just never get back to it.
Fortunate Son starts playing in the background as like
yeah.
Frank has like that 1,000-yard stare meme.
Like Doc Ock's robbing a bank. Oh, what? I'm sorry. I was thinking about all my friends getting wiped out by Agent Orange, but I guess I can help you fight the Octopus Man. No. The thing about it is, I think it's important to remember that probably the reason the public responded so strongly to the Punisher is this was the mid to late 70s, which is when gritty vigilante fiction was at its peak. Yes. And I've made this point before, that 4 of the biggest, like, let's just say pillars of masculinity, like in fiction, or the most masculine heroes or whatever, and also 4 of the most popular characters from the 70s are Travis Bickle from Taxi Driver, Charles Bronson in Death Wish, Clint Eastwood as Dirty Harry, and the Punisher. And I think that there's no coincidence that all 4 of those got popular at the same time, because if you look at what's going on in the country at the time, people are very frustrated.
In the same way Jonah Hex was a pastiche of The Man with No Name, this is very much a pastiche of those 70s, taking the law into your own hands kind of characters.
Yes. And that's the great thing about it, is it's such a strong archetype. The Punisher's look is basically not changed since the beginning. Yep. They got rid of his white go-go boots, but other than that, it's the body armor, skull. His facial features are always pretty similar. He basically came out fully formed, or debuted fully formed. But I think if you look at the history, look at how frustrated people were in the 70s and why they were embracing this vigilante fiction. Some of it was a cautionary tale, like Taxi Driver. Some of it was pure wish fulfillment, like Dirty Harry, and then some of it was in between, like Death Wish. But
what do you mean? Are you saying Death Wish isn't wish fulfillment, as his family gets raped and he's just like, "I'm gonna kill them"?
It's more towards Dirty Harry than it is Taxi Driver. driver, but there are slight parts in it where it's like, this guy might be crazy.
Hi, my name's Todd McFarlane, creator of Spawn.
And Death Wish.
And Death Wish. Have you ever
He created it when he was 5 years old?
Yes. Have you ever taken a ride on Satan's carousel? Have you ever wanted Charles Bronson to have sex with your wife? Quick, make a decision.
No. Yeah, so this character has his roots more in like men's fiction of the time and like gritty sort of cop cinema than it does superheroes.
Yeah, and the way Spider-Man and those kind of heroes like Fantastic Four and the like are kind of more power fantasies for children at the time, Punisher was a power fantasy for adult men.
Yes, exactly. Which is totally valid.
Yes.
Like, it's
yes,
totally fine.
Absolutely. But that is also why you will typically see a Punisher logo on like the most annoying dude driving at the gas station. So
yeah,
well, that's the point I wanted to touch on when you bring this up. It's so fascinating, like having Frank Castle's origins coming out of this more reactionary strain in a certain segment of men in the 70s with the zeitgeist of the crime wave, or at least the kind of the cultural perception of it, you know what I mean? And that's where we get all of these other figures that Andy had mentioned, just kind of as a response to it in different kind of lenses that people use to view that phenomenon or that streak of history. So yeah, having this kind of really interesting, I think, kind of evolution we've seen. Andy's right in that the Punisher's been pretty stagnant, but the way that people have responded to that character over the years, I think, has been really fascinating. So again, we have this origin point where in the late 70s, this reactionary response to like the perceived crime wave, and real crime wave that was going on at the time, then how that's developed over the years as we get into like the early Bush and late Bush eras with the War on Terror, and then how that develops into the mid and late 2010s with the Netflix Punisher series, and that's coming around, and specifically I think parallel to that interpretation of the character is also the cultural response, like as Marty had just mentioned. You have a combination of both like divorced dads, insane, really reactionary like dudes, and sovereign citizen types, and then like the most annoying guy with his fucking F-150, or his just the most like insane wraparound Oakley's guy ranting on Facebook, types, them just latching onto that character, and how I guess in conflict that is with I think what in the comics, at least at the time, they were doing with Frank Castle. It's just been a really fascinating evolution of this character overall.
Absolutely, and I think that's such a cool thing about Punisher as a character is that he is a stagnant character, and you just see kind of the times around him evolve and how it reacts to him. And it's interesting to see in real life. In the comics, it's just led to Punisher being infantilized basically, and just being like another fucking he's War Machine now. Not why I'm interested.
He's Cosmic Ghost Rider.
Yeah, he's Cosmic Ghost Rider. So no. So it is interesting, and I think we'll get into that as we talk about as we touch base on the other adaptations. But yeah, it is Punisher is absolutely a comic book pastiche of the 70s. I don't want to say power fantasies, but the 70s reactionary taking the law into your own hands and trying to take a stand against the system that doesn't get the job done, that kind of thing. So
yes. And then it's important to bring up that the best Punisher comics that have ever been written are by Garth Ennis.
Yes.
Like
100%.
that character did not fully reach his potential until Garth Ennis took over. And this is not to take, because obviously Garth Ennis is a very, very liberal person, so this is not a reaction to his politics whatsoever. But when Garth Ennis takes over and that becomes super popular, what era is that? Immediately pre and then mostly post 9/11.
Yes.
When the Punisher again experiences his big second resurgence in popularity. And then you get to like the 2010s where he actually starts to get like reintegrated into the Marvel universe a little bit more and like effectively neutered.
Yes.
As people start to get away from that. But we could do a whole episode just on the ongoing cultural relevance and reaction to the Punisher.
Yes.
But I do think it's important to note that like his biggest eras were late 70s to the 80s, like when he got his first series, I think it was Mike Zeck that did it. That's the one where it starts out with him in prison, and he's escaping.
5-issue run, I think it was like a limited
Yeah.
run. Yeah.
Yes, and then of course when Garth Ennis takes over, and it's because Garth Ennis took over that the Punisher movie gets greenlit, because this had been in various stages of development. Eventually, we'll do a heroic efforts on the actual Dolph Lundgren movie, but that was, we'll basically just say that is a cheesy ass 80s action movie that is super fun, but pretty irrelevant to the discussion of the Punisher as an actually cultural relevant character.
Yes.
It has as much to do with his cultural relevance as Swamp Thing does with Swamp Thing.
I was gonna say, like, the Dolph Lundgren Punisher film is a great triple feature with like Swamp Thing, 1982, Punisher, and then like the 1990 Albert Pugh and Captain America, where I'm like, it gets the essence of the character, but there's certain things that I would probably have tweaked about it. So
yes, so once this starts to get some real traction, you get Jonathan Hensley comes on board to write and direct, which real heroic efforts scholars such as us remember that Jonathan Hensley was developing the Hulk movie in the late 90s before Ang Lee took over. So this guy's always tried to, been working in that Marvel sphere, and then he finally got this chance to do the Punisher.
I went down quite the rabbit hole, by the way, on the writer, because it's Jonathan Hensley and Michael France, and I'm like, who the fuck is Michael France? I've never heard this guy before. And then I go down the rabbit hole, and I'm like, oh, he did Cliffhanger. He wrote the story for GoldenEye. He wrote one of the drafts for Hulk, and he somehow did a draft of the Fantastic Four movie, and he wrote the Punisher. Oh, no, he didn't write the Punisher video game, which is another thing to bring up. But yeah, so he had some comic book pedigree behind him. But then that led me down another rabbit hole, and I didn't know this, but did you know Mark Frost, the guy who worked with David Lynch on Twin Peaks, did drafts for both Fantastic Four movies in the 2000s?
What the fuck?
I did not know that.
Man needed a paycheck, hey.
That's a preview of this summer's heroic efforts.
No.
Yeah. But
some steps.
That's interesting, because a lot of these guys are working on a lot of different things at the same time, and it's almost like there's just sort of cross-pollination of ideas.
Yes.
And the thing about the Punisher 2004, if we're just going to dive right into it, is that Jonathan Hensley comes on board, and he's obviously super influenced by Welcome Back Frank, the Garth Ennis, Steve Dillon miniseries, which also he said Marvel sent to him basically saying, make this. Now this movie has basically nothing to do with that story, given that it's a Punisher origin story, but it does try to channel some of the harder violence of it. But getting into it, Jonathan Hensley, I think what he tried to do with this was basically make a modern Dirty Harry, or a modern Death Wish, and it's up to us now, as the heroic efforts boys, to determine whether or not he succeeded.
I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna come out the gate and say no.
Yeah.
I say yes. I think he succeeded in making a Dirty Harry pastiche with Punisher in it. I like the tone of it. I wish it was a little dirtier, but I like the fucking Florida vibes of it. It's a great Florida movie. It's a little too clean. Wish it was a little grittier and grimier. But of course, I think it's a thing of like, there's only so much you can do with, I'm sure, the money they were given, which was not a lot for the era, even. But I think in doing, and I think of a certain specific action sequences where I go like, oh yeah, this is fucking Dirty Harry with a skull on his chest, which is fine. It works for me. I think it's a successful film. I think it's a successful adaptation, and it just gets exactly what I like about Punisher to a degree. It doesn't have the violence and the grit that I want out of the character, but if I'm going to watch, again, if I'm watching the 80s Swamp Thing or the 90s Captain America, I also feel like this kind of fits in that era of like, it gets the character enough where I'm like, okay, I can appreciate this, but I do think it's better than those movies, so I'll just say that.
Well, I'm going to probably fall between you guys. Well, I know I'll fall between you guys, leaning more towards Martin. But Nick, do you want to take us through the plot of this real quick, since you were the one who watched it most recently?
Those who do evil to others will come to know me well.
No one's ever stood up for me before.
Call me the Punisher. Shouldn't play with knives.
Yeah, we we skimmed through this pretty fast. So we open up the film with a arms deal bust, and we have a guy posing and calling himself, like something Krieg. I think Peter Krieg or something like that.
Yeah.
Turns out it's actually Frank Castle. He's an undercover FBI agent, and
Otto
the
Krieg,
deal
thank you
goes.
very much.
What's that?
Otto Krieg, thank you very much. I watched
Otto Krieg. Otto Krieg. Oh yes, wunderbar. How could I forget? So, we have Thomas Jane doing a great German accent, but basically, Frank is posing as this German arms dealer. This deal goes south, and then the kid or the young man that's involved in that deal, he ends up being the son of John Travolta's character. I'm blanking on his name. It's something Saint. We'll just call him Mr. Saint.
Howard Saint.
Howard Saint. That's right.
Howard Saint.
So Howie is basically like the big local crime boss and don of this Florida like city. I don't even think they're in Miami. I think they're just in somewhere in Florida. So anywho, Frank does the deal. He survives. Obviously, the son does not, and obviously that pisses off Mr. Saint. So Howie, is looking for answers on like who killed my boy, and
Bobby.
he ends up he ends up uncovering that it was actually Frank, and he finds his identity. And we cut to Frank with his family. It's a 5-year reunion. Both sides of the family together. Frank's finally with his wife and son and enjoying it. And there's really, honestly, kind of sad but beautiful moment right before everything goes down where Frank is really just sitting there and having a real guy's moment where he's just kind of taking it all in, and he's like looking around. He's got a Modelo in his hand. Everyone's laughing and having a good time. And then he's just like, wow. You kind of see him relax his shoulders, and he's like, he's being like, you know what, maybe I can be happy for once. Unfortunately for him, John Travolta sent one of his goons down there, and his goon brought many more goons with him, and they show up and literally fucking murder everyone. Because when they put the hit out, it originally was just going to be Frank himself, but then John Travolta's incredibly beautiful fucking wife, she's just like, no, I want you to kill his whole family. And then their gay hitman bodyguard / right hand man shows up with all the goons, and they just fucking lay waste to everybody. Like literally, I think Frank's mom's the first one that gets fucking domed.
She gets like a knife in the back or something, or no, she gets like shot in the back and she collapses in her pastel suit, like her pastel old lady.
Like everybody's having fucking pina coladas, and next thing you know, grandma's getting fucking blown away. So everyone just gets fucking lit up, and it's really horrifying. And then Frank's wife and son get run over by a fucking Ford F-150, and it's insane. It's insane. And then they light Frank on fire, blow him up, and then he somehow survives. And then there's a local just man that like lives in there, because mind you, they're in Puerto Rico, but I guess on a private island where Frank's dad was living.
I feel like, don't they briefly mention the local man is into voodoo or something?
No, I was going to get to that. So they specifically say he's a witch doctor, which is kind of fucking nuts, because at no point like do we even see him do any kind of voodoo stuff. It is just a brother with like his chest out because they're in fucking Puerto Rico, and they just call him a witch doctor. I was like, okay, okay, I was like, all right, man.
It could just be like a guy walking by, and they're like, "Is that the witch doctor?"
That feels like a leftover from an old script draft where he was supposed to help bring Frank back to life with voodoo or witch doctorisms, and they got rid of that, but they kept the name.
Right before fucking Garth Ennis took over was when they had that Marvel Knights really short-lived Punisher series where he was supernatural or something. I don't quite remember because I haven't read it, but yeah, I remember people commenting that it got so far away from what the Punisher was that it
feels like a remnant of that script era where they're just like, they're like, oh, we'll make it like the comics right now. What's going on in the comics? Oh, he's a supernatural character. All right, he gets revived by a witch doctor.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I will say I thought this was going to be a fucking Todd McFarlane moment where instead of being a fantastical element, they just call every black person a witch doctor. That's what the movie was giving me when I was like, this is like one of two black guys in this entire movie, and they're just like one of them just called the fucking witch doctor. Anywho, so Frank, after watching his family get fucking just BTFO, just fucking destroyed. He gets blown up, literally blown up, sent into the ocean, and then the witch doctor brother pulls up on him and takes him away. Now, at this point, you're thinking, again, with that crazy ass name, you're thinking, okay, they're gonna have some Jonah Hex ass sequence where he's gonna get revived and he has visions of his wife and son. Yeah, exactly. He's gonna barf up a crow. But no, we literally, it's like a hard cut, like homeboy picks up Frank, takes him away, and then we just hard cut to Frank, like I guess presumably months later with a beard, being like, grabbing his guns. He's like, "Thanks for everything," But I forget what kind of fucking line. It's a pretty cold line. The brother's like, he says something to him, and then he's just like, it means go with God. And then Frank looks back at him with all his like fucking straps, and he's just like, God needs to sit this one out. And then he walks off, into the big city. So we fast forward, and basically this is where Frank just spends the rest of the movie and doing two things. One, held up in a like dog shit apartment, like in the ass end of town, with a couple of interesting characters we'll get to, and then plotting his revenge against Howard Saint and his entire family, and making sure he fucking murders all of them. And to speak on it real quick, because I won't. The plot is not really existent. Just know that Frank is scheming. He's getting people killed, and then it culminates in like a pretty sick ass fight at the end. But as far as the characters that we'll dive into, there's the main cast, if you want to call them that, in the broke ass apartment. We have a working gal, a fat guy, and then I want to say the quintessential, absolutely quintessential, like early aughts, like alternative guy. You know what I mean? Like when
played by Ben Foster, so it fits. Oh
yeah,
Angel himself.
It's insane. So Frank and his merry band of misfits and losers, they all have half of the movie is spent with them having like their own little kind of like drama and story, like within this dog shit apartment complex that's like breaking down with every step. And then also the rest of the movie, again, Frank scheming and murdering everyone. And long story short, after pulling some strings and putting plans into motion, Frank is able to do the following to get his sweet, sweet revenge. He's able to blackmail the right-hand man and be like, "Hey, I know you're gay. I have some photos of you. Now show up to this hotel and give me fucking money." Then he's able to use that to frame the gay right-hand man as fucking the beautiful Cuban wife of Howard Saint. And that leads Howard to lose his mind, think he's getting cucked by his best friend, to murder his best friend in a very like...
You killed me, Howard! You killed me!
In a very sensual way. It's like, as he's like thrusting the knife into him, he's inserting
like
the knife.
Was going to kiss him in that moment. They're really
close. Look, I mean, I wouldn't put it past him. John Travolta was damn near like pulling a fucking Tom Brady when his dead son, when he was looking at his body in the morgue, he like kissed him like 3 fucking times. He kept coming back to his corpse and kept trying to tongue him. It was weird.
John Travolta's like, you know what? I'll just cruise around gyms at 3 a.m. That's what I'll do.
So Frank is able to make John Travolta do gay murder to his best friend. He's then he throws his beautiful Cuban wife into the fucking train tracks and gets her killed. And then
really
Frank
bad
comes
stock scream.
just literally stock scream. And then he shows up to Howard's like main like hotel in downtown, not Miami, and he murders everybody in the building. And pretty satisfying and badass sequence, and with a fucking bow and arrow, a sawed-off shotgun, a bunch of C4 and Semtex, which I have no idea where he's getting that. Claymores everywhere out the ass. It's pretty sick. So yeah, there's really not much of a plot to speak of. There are fun moments to talk about.
And then when he finishes Howard Saint, he ties him to the back of a car and just lets the car drive off into a parking lot as he screams. As cars explode in the parking lot, and it forms the Punisher skull logo in the sky. He took the fucking time to do that.
Yeah. He literally he ties Howie to the car, slaps the car like it's a horse on the ass, lets it drag him off to that incredible scream that Marty just played. Yes. And in case you didn't hear it with that playing in it, the entire like small, local car dealership. Basically, the entire car dealership starts exploding, and then it creates the giant silhouette of a flaming Punisher skull. It's
will
insane.
Just say the reason I think I love this movie as much as I do, the reason it's like I'm not gonna say it's a perfect film, far from it, no, but I have such an affection for this movie because I love me a good revenge movie. This is one of the ultimate revenge movies because it literally ends with him with the bad guy shot both of his kneecaps, and he goes like, "You killed my son." And you just hear, "No!" Pfft, both of them, and then he goes, "And I made you kill your best friend, and I made you kill your wife."
It's pretty badass. I'll give him that. I don't really like this movie, but like I will say, like that ending, the last 10 minutes of this movie, fucking rock.
Yes,
it's badass, but I think that leads to the main problem of this movie is that you don't like really feel the effect of any of it.
Yep.
Which is like because I really like this movie too. I don't know if I'd use the term love, but I really like this movie, and I'm a lot closer to Martin. In opinion, at least.
He's closer to me like John Travolta was to his best friend in this movie, you know? Kill me, Andy. Kill me.
No, you're killing me.
Kill me.
No, Marty. No. Not the director's cut.
Yeah, look, I have to cut in. I'm so sorry. The goon, the right-hand goon, him getting killed in the gay murder by John Travolta, the reason why it was sticking with me, so I just realized it right now, the reason why it stuck with me is because that is an own inflection, and as he's like, stroking John Travolta as he's being stabbed up, like, why, Howie, why? It reminds me, and it is straight out of, if anyone has seen The Bikers, or The Bike Riders, with, what's that man's name? Tom Hardy and
Austin Butler.
And Austin, yeah, Austin Butler. Exactly. So like there's a whole sequence where they're fighting in that movie where Tom Hardy is stroking Austin Butler and doing the exact same thing, the high pitched inflection, stroking his like chest, like calming him down. It's the same thing.
Just the thing guys do.
Just dudes being bros.
Just me and the homies.
Just me and the boys.
Stroking each other's chests,
If I can't penetrate the homie and have him stroke my hair while he's squealing, what are we even in this for?
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
That was good.
But it's just the thing about this movie is that it's. And if anybody's ever listened to the director's commentary with Jonathan Hensley, it is fascinating because that honestly is one of the more useful director's commentaries if someone is looking to get into like filmmaking as a practical form of art. Obviously, there's lots of commentaries where it's, this shot represents that. But this is Jonathan Hensley being very candid about like, we didn't have money for this. We had to do this. We had to go here. We had to do this. But there's some funny parts in it. So we'll just talk about the one thing I wanted to bring up is that Nick really emphasized the fact that a critical part of Frank's revenge is that one of Howard's mafia members is closeted gay. And it's really funny because in the commentary, Jonathan Hensley goes like, well, people criticize this. They said it was kind of dumb. He goes, but in The Sopranos, there's a mobster in The Sopranos who's gay, and he doesn't want Tony Soprano and the mob to find out about it. And he's like, and nobody really complains about that. I'm like, that's because that's The Sopranos, and that has like a real point to it. Like, yeah, I love you, Jonathan, and I like your movie, but like this does not have the impact that Vito's amazing Johnny Cakes subplot. And I'm being serious. I love that series of episodes. Like
Johnny Cakes, Quentin Glass, same character. Come on, man.
Yeah, exactly.
I know all these characters' fucking names because I remember. I saw this movie in theaters. I remember seeing it in theaters because my parents did not give a fuck. They're like, you could see an R-rated movie. You were 8 years old. You're ready.
Yeah.
And I'm happy they did because I saw this movie a lot as a kid, and I had the DVD of it. I got the shitty Blu-ray that they released of it at the dawn of Blu-ray that looks like fucking garbage. So hey, can
that
someone
doesn't
please
even have Jonathan Hensley's commentary?
That doesn't have the commentary or any any special features for that matter. So hey, if a boutique publisher or something like that wants to release a 4K of this movie, I'd really fucking appreciate that. Do that in Superman Returns. Both movies desperately need it. Anyway, I will defend this movie. I do want to say, like, I know that fucking I'm making a good fucking laugh at fucking you killing me, Howard, you killing me. But I really like that guy. His name is Will Patton, and if you've seen him in things.
He's a great actor.
He's a great actor. He's in like the fucking Halloween, the new Halloween trilogy from a few years back. He's in those Horizon movies that are definitely going to get made and released. But
he's
also,
the villain in the Swamp Thing show.
I was gonna say he is the villain in the Swamp Thing show, which is kind of a big fucking deal for us here at Heroic Efforts. So yeah, yes. I very much enjoy him as an actor, and I think like he's given a better performance than John Travolta. He's just kind of like mean mugging most of the time, and I always thought as a kid, I thought he was the dude from the Matrix sequels that like Agent Smith takes over, but that is not the case. Two different dudes.
Well, we gotta talk about the strengths of this movie before we can really get into the real what's wrong with it, because I think there are more strengths than weaknesses. But I think those weaknesses are almost critical weaknesses that sort of, you know, there's all these really good structurally sound beams, but then the stuff that's keeping it stuck to the ground is like made out of toothpicks, and you're like, well, as long as the wind doesn't blow, this will stay up. You know, Thomas Jane anchors this whole thing. Thomas Jane is the perfect Punisher. I don't think there's been a bad Punisher yet. I'm being serious. Dolph Lundgren's great. Thomas Jane, Ray Stevenson, John Bernthal. I think Thomas Jane might be my favorite. I think the big problem with Thomas Jane's is that they try to keep him too human after the death of his family. Yes. And the big problem with it is, well, because we were going back and at the beginning of the episode, we were talking about the Punisher's wish fulfillment and stuff like that. Yes, the Punisher's wish fulfillment, but in all the best written Punisher comics, there is no ambiguity about the fact that this guy is a psychopath. Yes. We're just lucky that he's really good at finding out who's guilty.
Right. Yeah, you know? Right. Yeah, that's a big thing with Punisher, is that he is absolutely detached emotionally, and I think that's something that this movie definitely doesn't do very well, is that they give him too many outs, and by that I mean he's got two buddies and a possible love interest if he hangs around, but he's just like, nah, I got revenge to do. And I get that this film is kind of framing itself as like a Punisher origin story before he fully becomes Punisher. I kind of get that vibe by the end of the film, maybe. But yeah, they just give him too many outs in this and too many chances of like, oh, you could have kind of a normal kind of thing, and he's too friendly with people sometimes. The fact that he tortures that fucking guy was it Mickey when he's torturing Mickey and he's using a popsicle stick. I'm like, that's not something the Punisher would do. He would actually torture him.
The Punisher would clip off one of his nuts and say, like, I'm going to clip off the other one if you don't start helping me.
You know? I want to come back to that specific point, but I'll save that for, like, our kind of criticism breakdown. I want to stick with Andy on, like, the positive, because, like, even I will admit there's some, like, positive things to talk about with this movie. There are some fun moments. So let's stick with that, because I definitely want to get with you, Marty. Yeah, I definitely want to get with you and talk about that scene in particular, because I think that's where the movie kind of lost me, or at least gave me a different understanding of what, like, oh, this is not what I was expecting it to be. Right. So just sticking with the good for a second, I will say right off the bat, agreeing with Andy here, Thomas Jane is fantastic. He is literally the best part of this film. First and foremost, I got to always give props to him. He's a true man's man. I can appreciate this brother. I would say maybe next to Hugh Jackman in X2, Thomas Jane here is probably like the very last and the pinnacle of early 2000s, like male actor physique. And what I mean by that is, like, he looks fucking great. Like, he's yoked. He's like, you know, he's got a great set of abs, but my man is not looking crazy. Like, obviously he has like a Hollywood workout. Obviously he's like, you know, forcefully like dehydrated or purposely dehydrated to show off, you know, more vascularity or vascularness, I should say, for like his, you know, muscle definition. All that, you know, is baked into it. That's just Hollywood. But he doesn't look like insane. And I'm not like, you know, saying it's a bad thing, but he doesn't look like how we have Marvel heroes now, where they're just fucking huge, just like roided off of the, you know, growth hormone and everything like that. No shame in the game. That's just how it is. but he doesn't look like my man Johnny, you know what I mean? Where he gets like the fucking Marvel like treatment. He just comes out like looking like the Giga Chad, but like in a more eldritch way. Like Thomas Jane here looks like a naturally like just extremely well built and in shape guy, and I can really appreciate that because it's a bygone era in Hollywood. Or again, like him and Hugh Jackman next to the last times we've really seen this body type in Hollywood. After this, we see like the way major development into like the super like kind of hero physique that we see now. So that's the point first and foremost I want to throw out there. But as performance, Thomas Jane is fantastic. Even if I have criticism of the writing, I have criticism of the plot, and I think Andy's 100% right. He is too fucking friendly in this. I think he needs to be way more unhinged, way more like just psychotic. He's just too goddamn charming. You know what I mean? And I'm sorry, like I don't need Frank Castle to be that. I need him to be like, you know, cold, calculated badass, but like Thomas Jane is a fucking delight in this.
Yes, and Thomas Jane is fantastic, and ironically, that's one of the things that Warzone actually got better than this is that Punisher that is a fucking psychopath. So, yeah.
Well, the thing about it is, if we're because Nick already took us through the plot, and I don't need to go through every scene because actually there really is not much plot to this, and I think that's a big downfall to this is that after the family gets killed, it's just kind of him dicking around in Tampa.
It's him dicking
for a while,
being like, "I'm going to make a devious plan."
yeah, and then every once in a while he'll shoot somebody.
Yeah.
But I think when the movie begins and there's that whole scene with the FBI and there's the undercover guy and they get shot and then like he wakes up out of the body bag, none of it is really that effective. Like you're watching this whole moment that's supposed to have this tension and then this sort of twist payoff, and it at this point I think I get that Jonathan Hensleigh was trying to do a throwback, but at this point, like in film, it just felt so cliched. You know, you've seen this 1,000 times in canon movies.
I don't mind so much that it opens on that sequence. Of course, it's jarring, and I remember when I was a kid watching, like, this is the start of the Punisher movie.
It's so weird.
It's a weird sequence, but I do like that it is playing on a cliche of just, you know, oh, you open on like the last job he has to do, and then he, you know, he's about to retire. They throw him a little party or whatever. He's just like this charming, fucking affable dude, and you're like, okay, we're gonna watch him kind of settle down and everything. I didn't mind that so much. I like the cliche of it. I will say though, but in a Punisher film, it's very strange. It doesn't really fit as well.
Well, it's a lot of, and again, I like Jonathan Hensleigh, what he brought to this. I think this is much better than a alternative version of a 2004 Punisher movie would have been.
Yes.
Like I shudder to think someone just trying to adapt Welcome Back Frank like verbatim, because that just wouldn't work on film. And that's one of the best Punisher stories. I'm not dissing it at all, but like I think what it is he's trying to emulate Sam Peckinpah and Don Siegel and Sergio Leone, but all of these guys that he's trying to emulate have pretty reserved styles, apart from Leone, have pretty reserved styles. So when it's not them doing it, it's just kind of slow. You know what I mean? Like Dirty Harry is not the most exciting movie ever made. It's just Clint Eastwood's performance and everything that brings it together. It works, but it's not like it's a run and gun, like people are shooting each other constantly kind of movie. And with this, it's just sort of like this. It's sort of like this half successful attempt at emulating these styles, but again, it keeps cutting back to shit you don't care about.
Yes.
You know, we should talk about John Travolta as the villain because I love Travolta. I love when he goes over the top. He doesn't really go over the top with this, and he's just sort of Mr. You know, strokes his chin and is trying to be like a evil gangster.
Let's talk about John Travolta.
And it would roll in the street, and a truck would squish it.
That is a better performance. I'm not even kidding. I am a certified fanatic fan. I'm a fanatic. But it's just Fred Durst brought it with that movie.
Yeah,
but
I think Travolta's fine in this. I am very acceptable of a Travolta, so I think he is fine in this. He does not fit the role at all. He doesn't fit the character at all. The way he interacts with go ahead.
He's like a scuzzy, gross, like kind of cigar chomping monster.
Clean. Yeah, he's too.
Well, what you need is honestly, and it's very funny because this is also another Florida movie, one, and also an early 2000s movie. But in Too Fast, Too Furious, like you need somebody like the villain from that. The actor's name's escaping me right now. I think it's Cole Hauser. Yeah, he's who plays that Carter. And Cole Hauser in Too Fast Too Furious, he's like perfect for that. Like both in terms of being like a Florida gangster, because we're dealing with the specifically geographic stuff, and I think that's important for the setting, which we can get into. But he is like a psychopath. He's intimidating. He's crazy. John Travolta, it feels really fucking out of place and phoned in for this one.
He's too clean. His club is also like way too fucking clean. I'm sure they could have just they didn't have the money to set dress or make another club, so they just went with whatever they could afford. I get it.
You know what that was, right?
What?
You know what that was, right? That was a bank. That was a bank.
Really?
And then the stage in the middle is like all the tellers. That's where that would have been. And they just built on top of that.
That's
so
fair.
I mean,
working with
as
what
far
you
as
got,
low budget filmmaking goes, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, that is that. But this should have been a grungy backdoor club then, in my opinion. You should have like rented out a fucking bar and done that. Because Travolta's take on this character is too clean. Everything around him feels too clean. And I agree with Nick. You need kind of more of like that. Like you're in Florida, take advantage of that. Get like kind of like more of a rugged, scuzzy kind of villain. I think of the guy from Bad Boys 2, the villain in that one. He's fucking would have been perfect for this. And that's also a Florida fucking action film series. So I like Travolta's performance actually in this. I think he's fun. I don't think he's good. I think he's enjoyable to watch, and watching him go is great. So I'm down for that. But I do think he doesn't fit what the tone should have been. He's too fucking clean, and that makes it, when he does like the horrific acts in the film, feel too far removed. Whether it's sending the mafia dudes to his henchmen to go kill the family, he should have been there. If he was more of a scummy villain, he should have him killing his wife and his friend feel too, I don't want to say, it feels like almost like a 90s thriller kind of look where there's a lot of blue light going on. It feels too gentle in the moment. It used to feel like he should have fucking been like fucking hacking away at his old buddy, and he should have been strangling the wife or whatever, and he's being fucking rough. You can't just hate this villain so much if he's too clean. I hate him anyway, but you can't, he has to be grotesque, and that's what makes the revenge taken on him so much better.
Feels inauthentic.
Yes, and I'm going to quote, again, one of my favorite filmmakers, but S. Craig Zahler is a huge Garth Ennis Punisher fan. And he was talking about the fact that, like, well, most of the Punisher's, like, ongoing villains suck because the whole nature of the Punisher is you're not going to be around if you're his villain. So, you know, Jigsaw is really the only one that has any lasting impression. I mean, there's
Barracuda. Thank you very much. Barracuda is the best.
There's Barracuda. There's Monucci. Okay. But, like...
Monucci,
the thing is, he was bringing up, like, the thing about Punisher Max and Garth Ennis in general is he goes, like, okay, well, the Punisher himself doesn't really change, and he's going to kill everybody by the end. So what you're doing is basically setting up a cast of horrifically grotesque people and then watching them be taken out one by one. And he goes, well, if you do that right, that can be very appealing and very interesting in a good crime story, like Garth Ennis stories are. There's really, I mean, it's a bunch of central casting thugs, and then friggin' John Travolta. There's nobody, like, every thug, there should have been at least 5 or 6 thugs, all with weird physical deformities or scars, or that had, like, weird pervy tendencies, you know what I mean? Like, it's stuff like that. Like, remember we were talking about the Crow reboot?
Yes.
Where there was that one villain that, like, was kind of pervy, but then they just never follow up on it? Like, you should have had that. Like, memorable...
Certified heroic efforts, you know, thing that we look for, like quality that we look for, is having memorable goons. You know, as Andy alluded to in our Crow episode, you got to have memorable goons. You got to have weird guys. This movie has none of that.
I will say there are no memorable goons, absolutely, but there are memorable assassins who have their one fucking sequence.
Okay, you know what? You know what? Marty stands absolutely correct. I am ashamed I forgot. That's actually one of the, I think, funner, albeit short, action sequences, but also one of the more fun, memorable characters is, what is it, Harry Heck?
Harry Heck.
Harry Heck. It's just some random fucking. I was so like baffled and confused when this scene happened. I was like, "What the fuck is going on?" Like Frank's in a diner eating some pancakes, and then some random Johnny Cash looking knockoff
changes in that moment.
the entire time, like this Johnny Cash knockoff, but that also happens to have like early 2000s like sleaze rock like tattoos and like painted fingernails and like a shit ton of rings and shit. That guy just strolls into the diner in this fucking Denny's in the ass crack of town, has a big old guitar case, and you're thinking, oh, he's gonna have like a Tommy gun or some shit in there. No, it's an actual guitar. And everyone is silent.
Frank tense up because he thinks he's gonna pull a gun out.
Yeah, Frank's over here reaching for his piece, understandably, and then this fucking weirdo just busts out the guitar. Again, no one has spoken for the last 5 minutes in the film, and he starts like Harry Heck starts playing a tune, singing it, strolls up and in his like kind of southern gay way, goes up to Frank, and he's just like, "I wrote you a song. Did you like it? I'm gonna play it at your funeral."
Play at your funeral.
And then he just like walks away, and then next thing you know, he fucking pulls up on Frank, crashes into his goddamn car on the bridge as it's like drawing down.
Gets him stuck.
Yeah. And then he pulls out a fucking S-Pup like automatic shotgun and starts unloading shells into Frank's like car. It's insane.
That's the thing.
That's so fucking cool.
Yes.
When Frank has like the fucking rolling sheet metal that goes down over his windows, like that's very Punisher.
That's the thing.
I love that.
There are so specific, fantastic moments in this movie that I think get it. It's just that they're like both assassin moments and none of like the goons. So
I do have to bring up, like, I am going to just go straight against my own point. There is another very memorable goon, which is the highlight of this whole movie, which is the Russian.
Yes.
I love that scene.
Honestly,
Again,
this is the best scene.
From Garth Ennis.
Yes, it's straight from Garth Ennis. Yep. It is fucking great. I love that. Like, this is where I can rationalize the neighbors existing in this movie. Is they're playing the music, making dinner, having a good time. Meanwhile, on the fucking right across the way is fucking Frank getting thrown across the room, getting beat the fuck out, having like he pulls a gun on the guy, he just slams a fucking weight on it and breaks the fucking gun.
It's so great. Like,
it's incredible. Like it's the most Garth Ennis moment.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny.
Frank throws a grenade and the Russian guy like knocks it like a baseball back into the tub and in the bathroom, and the Frank crawls in the tub as the fucking bomb goes off. It's incredible. It's the best sequence of the film, I think, for me personally, and it's again, like Andy had mentioned, the most Garth Ennis or true to Garth Ennis spirit scene in the entire film. And I think, as Marty just mentioned, it's the only one that really kind of justifies or rationalizes having this shitty apartment and the neighbors, frankly.
Yep. I love the bit where he stabs him and then he just kind of goes like he fucking just takes it. That's great. By the way, he actually stabbed him in that sequence. When they were filming it. That's Kevin Nash. He stabbed him and actually got him like right in the collarbone.
Oh my god.
But he kept going.
He just rolled with it.
He just rolled with it.
He just rolled with it.
So that grunt is him. That's all.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you're like 6'7", and like a clean 350, just a fucking giant, then like, probably a little butter knife isn't going to do too much.
Yeah, exactly. So apparently they gave him extra beers for that. So
they paid the fucking Russian in beer.
They paid him in beer, which is what they were working with on this movie. So
I'll go so far as to say that that's not only the best sequence of the film, that's one of the best sequences of the early 2000 Marvel movies in general. This is very this is slightly hyperbolic, but like the peak of all of that is obviously the train fight from Spider-Man 2. Like nothing is ever going to top that sequence, and this doesn't get anywhere close. But I would say it is getting close to some of the scenes in like Raimi's first Spider-Man, as far as just like entertainment, like creativity.
Like Spider-Man fighting Green Goblin's a very creative sequence. This feels like where it's just a back and forth fucking fist fight of just bam, and they're getting more exhausted as they keep going, and fucking Frank is just thrown through a goddamn wall at one point.
And that scene in the commentary, Jonathan Hensley talks about how that's actually Thomas Jane. Like he wanted to do it so he could crawl towards the camera and they could see that it was him. And they said, like, you watch when he gets thrown through, his head hits and goes at like an unnatural way, like against like the brick like lip of the wall. And he said like everyone in the crew just was like they literally thought Thomas Jane had broken his neck. Like when they saw his head go at that unnatural angle.
That's commitment, baby. That's fucking commitment right there.
Was Thomas Jane also the one that they had in the explosion where he blows up and he just goes?
I don't think so.
Did any of you boys on that topic? Did any of you boys catch? There's, I think, one of the goons early on when Frank's family's getting massacred, and then he shoots a propane tank like a fucking video game and blows the goon hiding behind the barbecue stand. He blows him away. If you catch it, that goon, he's wearing so the guy, the stuntman's on fire, like he's fully immolted, but his like flame retardant mask is I think a Michael Myers mask. Like it looks just like it. Yes. It's just one of those caught. Like if you only see it for like half a frame, but he lands with a thud. He's burning on fire, but he looks like he's wearing a straight up white Michael Myers mask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love those sequences, and it's just there's two amazing fucking fantastic pitch perfect this is Punisher scenes in this movie, and then there's other ones where I'm like this is really good, or other ones where I'm like this is too clean or this doesn't really get it. And I will say I was laughing about it earlier because just the way Nick described it was really fucking funny to me. I really like the scene where his family gets run over with a car. I think that's with the music going, it works for me.
Well, because Jonathan Hensley in the commentary says people are saying that this is too violent or it's too, blah, 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 blah. And he was talking about the reaction that it got of people saying, oh, it's too humorless, it's too violent or whatever.
Which is what
and he's like, well, if you notice,
movie kind of gets that critique, so.
Yeah, exactly. But he was saying, if you notice, I don't show any of the dead bodies. I don't show blood being shot out of them. I don't show the impact of the bullets. He's like, I'm just trying to create a reason for why this guy would want to have his revenge. And he's justifying all of it. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, but you're not going all the way. Like, this is already a super budget movie, so you should probably just lean a little bit more into the exploitation. I know he should do a little more classy, Dirty Harry kind of movie, but it is at the end. His family gets just run down in a Ford F-150, and then the mom is driving in a car chase. That's the funny part. Yeah. She's got that giant
little fucking beach or whatever. It's like
yeah.
There's no suspension in that damn truck.
And then she's trying to bang on the windows of the empty bungalow, and she's like, "Help! And it's just come on, honey, let's run." They run the only place where they can't get away.
It's a straight line.
A straight line on the pier.
Yeah. The only place where they can't get away. Fun fact: when Thomas Jane picks them up, he has a completely black nail. That is not nail polish. Yeah, it's literally just Thomas Jane accidentally smashed his thumb in a car door that morning, and they didn't have money to CGI it out, so they just left it in.
Interesting, because I noticed
he got into he's been in a couple scuffles at that point in the sequence. So
yeah, I just assumed he got in a fight because he'd been tussling with goons for 10 minutes prior to that. So that's fine, but that's an interesting fun fact.
Yeah. Also, Roy Scheider's his dad.
I was gonna say I love cool. Roy Scheider in one of his last screen appearances, getting a 5-minute nice little sequence. Although I do think again his death should have been more brutal because it just looks like he farts and dies at one point. Dad. Okay.
Well, all of these things are sort of half-baked, right?
Yes.
Because getting back to the Russian, right? When John Travolta is getting all mad that the Punisher's stealing his money and blowing all this stuff up.
The money, he goes, Howard.
With the money, Howard.
With the money,
but he goes I've had it with this. Call in the Russian. And then it just cuts.
Yes.
There's no build-up to it at all. And for a character like that and for a sequence as over the top as that, you would at least cut back to his underlings being oh my god, the Russian. Some sort of reaction to let us know that this is a bad deal for Frank. Because as it stands, he just goes, call in the Russian. It's who?
Maybe they ruin the mystique. I don't know, but you need a sequence with the Russian already established as a goon for him, and have him literally the next scene fucking just already in the process of murdering somebody else, and then he gets the call and be here's your target, that kind of thing. And he just does that.
You have a Russian version,
screen, that smile.
You have a Russian version of that Colin Farrell bullseye scene when he's introduced in Daredevil.
Yes.
But instead of throwing paper clips into somebody's neck, it's he just squishes their eyes out of their skull or something,
Yeah.
Your next target is this,
he walks out into the tundra.
Yes, and
you know,
he's finishing. He just goes like, and he just walks out in the snow, still wearing the same fucking shirt.
Yeah,
He walked the whole way there.
He gets the call after he's done like popping someone's head like a grape, and then his only response is "duh," and then that's it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's definitely, I agree. That's definitely something we needed. So I will say, like, overall, yeah, there are maybe 5 redeeming things I can say, just so we can fully transition to like kind of our more critical analysis and breakdown. I will say that again, Thomas Jane, the absolute anchor of the film. He's fantastic in every way. The Russian scene, great. Harry Heck scene, great. The ending scene with Frank just enacting his full revenge, I think is fucking fantastic. It's the last 10 minutes of the film, fan-fucking-tastic. And the last thing, and I would be super remiss without mentioning this, the Olivia, the wife of Howard Saint, played by the lovely, beautiful Laura Herring. My God, certified dime. I'm sorry, I had to mention it. This woman is beautiful. Yes, did she put a hit on a man and his entire innocent family, including multiple children? Maybe. Who's to say? You know, but what I can promise you is that she is fucking stunning, just absolute beautiful Cuban queen. My God, Moron. But yeah, she's
already, Nick, and your women, you know. So.
Like I had to mention that because I'm just like she is half the reason I got through this film.
She's the lady from fucking Mulholland Drive. Like, yeah, she's a great fucking actress.
We're about a month out from David Lynch's passing. Thank you, David Lynch, for making her famous.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, David Lynch, for bringing her into the world of cinema.
Yeah,
but
also she gives a better performance than John Travolta. I'm going to be real. That's not just me talking because she's beautiful, but like she gives a better performance.
Yes.
How fucking cool would it be?
She should have been the head.
How fucking cool would it be if, like, just like in Welcome Back, Frank, where like Ma Nucci gets mauled by polar bears or whatever? What if there were like 3 separate encounters with the Punisher that she has, and she gets more and more physically fucked up as it goes on? Like he sets her face on fire, or she gets, you know, like a scar the first time.
Right.
She gets her arm chopped off or something.
I would be like, no, thank you.
Yeah, I would be with you because again, I was thinking of the Garth Ennis comics watching this whole film. But as much as I would love that for them to have done that with a character, I refuse to indulge in any kind of torture of that beautiful woman. I don't want her at all. I'm so glad she didn't get killed in a worse way.
In a different movie where she was the head of the crime family and made worse, that would have worked. As it is right now, where she's the wife of the actual like real bad guy, yeah, she makes the fucking hit call. Basically, she's a piece of shit and deserves what she gets. Essentially. The torture sequences would only really work with John Travolta's character because he is the head villain that you're following. He's the face of all the crime. Whereas, you know, I feel like if they did that in this, it'd just be like, this is a little fucked up, man.
Yeah, I would be outside of the director's like house being like, leave that beautiful woman alone, you sick fuck.
Yeah, no, I think the big problem with this movie, though, is the budget. The fact that it had to be shot in Florida, which is not the setting for the Punisher. There's again, I'm going to keep referring to the Jonathan Hensleigh commentary. 1, because I've heard it at least a dozen times, but 2, because he's very candid. There's a part where they're introducing Frank's Puerto Rican getaway spot, and there's like overhead footage. He's like, "Oh, we bought that footage off the internet. That's stock footage of Puerto Rico." Because we didn't have money to do it, and
music felt
Frank,
like stock music too.
It's like, it's like Under the Sea or something that would play during like a Long King Polly or something.
Under the Sea is crazy.
Even
the witch doctor should talk like Sebastian.
I mean, he basically was.
I mean, that is about the level that this movie is on.
Frank Martin, what are you doing?
What are you doing, Frank?
Wagwan, Frank, wagwan.
I mean, the Castle family compound is beach bathrooms,
literally,
and beach changing rooms that they just set dressed. So, on the one hand, I prefer to look at this as a very valiant and, if not heroic, effort with a very low budget, but that doesn't change the fact that it really, really hinders it. And I feel like John Travolta probably got paid a lot for this money, or probably got paid a lot of money for this movie. What if you just used his fee to pay for some scenes in New York.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
That's one thing that was baffling me. I was like, why, in addition to, I'm sorry, a pretty lackluster performance from Travolta, I'm like, even at this time, I'm like, he probably cost a pretty penny. He's probably a decent chunk of this budget to pay him.
This is still
Why?
wild. This is Wild Hogs era John Travolta, where somehow he's popular again.
Yeah, and it's like, what the fuck? Like, why? Like, why are we wasting money on him? Like,
He's
you could
riding
have
the
used that
Pulp
money.
Fiction wave still.
Yeah, you could have used that money for way better. I would have much rather a no-name actor with a much better performance and being able to, like Andy said, shoot some stuff for God's sake in a fucking like proper city.
Mm-hmm.
On the DVD and Blu-ray cover, he's bigger than Thomas Jane.
Yes.
It's just a big John Travolta face and then the outline of the Punisher.
Insane.
But this whole movie, again, it has that problem. I think, speaking of the Florida setting, a big example that I think is indicative of the whole movie of what I have kind of a problem with is when he goes up into the business building and he takes the two guards hostage or whatever, and he cuts out the hole in the window, and he points the gun at them. He's like, "Out the window," and they're like, "What?" And then it cuts to all the money is raining down. It's like teasing you with being brutal, and then it doesn't do it.
Well, not just that, like, because on that exact same, because I had this exact same thought, Andy, is when he says out the window, the guys are like, what? Not only do they tease that there, but then the people are screaming outside, not like, oh my God, like, look at the money. Like, they're screaming as if someone fucking fell through, like, you know, off the 7th story onto a car. So I'm over here thinking, like, oh shit, the two goons on the bottom floor are going to go out and see, like, their money men are fucking, like, you know, they just crushed somebody's family Toyota. You know what I mean? With then the money flying, like, you know, behind them. But instead, no, it's just like dollar bills.
But again, it's that thing of like, he's just too fucking nice. These are fucked up criminals. Just throw them out the window, Frank.
That would be so Garth Ennis if he did get thrown out the window and the money was raining, and all the people out there are grabbing the money instead of looking at
the
or
fucking
trying to help the guy.
just right there. Yeah, that would have been great.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you should do in that sequence.
Yeah, so I mean, we can keep going over all the sequences where this could have been better, but I really do think that Jonathan Hensley was trying his best with this. And
Yes,
I will say...
I understand that, yeah.
Yeah, and I will say, like, we should probably at least talk a little bit about the fact that this was made pretty much right after 9/11, because I think that really does inform both the like politics of this movie and how far it's willing to go. Because the problem is, when I was thinking about this when I made the outline yesterday, I really want to bring this up. People always talk about how after 9/11, really extreme horror became popular.
Yes.
Saw, Hostel, Cabin Fever, The Devil's Rejects, what have you. All that, you know, High Tension, all that stuff became super popular because whatever reason, we can talk about the cultural zeitgeist another time, but after something like that, and once the war on terror began, people really started gravitating towards extremely violent, visceral, sort of cynical, bleak movies. Why in the hell can't a Punisher movie made in that same era have that same level of real teeth to it?
Budget. I don't know. Yeah, they should have gone with that. It is interesting, though, because I didn't know this, apparently, but when Jonathan Hensley signed on to the production, they didn't tell him what the budget was going to be. So when he was writing this draft of the script, he, from what I could see, he said he thought he was going to get around $65 million, because that's like what most big action movies were costing at the time, and they gave him 33. So apparently they had to cut down a lot of sequences, or also just like retool certain scenes. And that's where I think like, the out the window scene probably was one of those where it's like, well, we could save money on not buying like fucking dead body props or whatever, like, you know, the fucking gore effects. So
yeah, just
scrimping and saving where you can, where you've written a movie. This is why it's so important, again, because we're speaking as, you know, fucking production company owners, is that you write to budget, write to what you know you can do. If you write a $65 million movie and you somehow get that greenlit and they go, actually you got $33 million, that's going to severely hinder your production.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Andy, one, Marty's absolutely correct. Like, I think money is really just the biggest culprit here.
Yeah.
They just could not do as much they did, which is why I think the Travolta thing frustrates me so much, because
You just
that's
get
an
millions
area
from
where I'm
this.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a bad allocation of resources. Like, I honest to God think you could have retooled, with his cut of the money alone, a better film. You know, if nothing else, included one or two more great sequences, like Harry Heck or The Russian. You know what I mean? Just to really like kind of cement this movie.
Yeah.
But in regards to what Andy brought up with this time period, it's interesting. Sorry, go ahead, Marty.
No, I was gonna say if Millie Bobby Brown got $10 million for that Enola Holmes bullshit movie, then John Travolta in this $33 million movie in the early 2000s at like peak popularity, he probably got like maybe about $4 to $5 million of that $33 million budget, which is a huge chunk of a production taken away.
100%. And again, that's why I'm like, it's just a bad allocation of resources, like unnecessary, especially for the performance that he gave. But I've hated on Travolta enough. I was going to say, though, to Andy's point about bringing up this when the film came out, it's very interesting in this post 9/11, both American culture and specifically American cinema, where you really could have gone whole hog, because the American psyche is so shattered and bloodthirsty, both on itself and to the world at this time, where we're getting insane. We're getting insanely graphic media at this time, as we're kind of as a country working through like these feelings, and yet Punisher doesn't really touch on like Frank's war stuff. It's super, his like backstory and his history is like in the war is like super fucking like understated, and it doesn't really play too much other than like I guess his tactics as a character throughout it. And then two, as Andy said, it's super like defanged, and there's not, even though everyone else around him is like cutting people in half, Frank isn't. He's poking people with literal fucking popsicles. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah, and this is interesting because like Thomas Jane trained with the Navy SEALs for 6 to 7 months for the film, so it kind of sucks that like I don't really see that so much in the production. It just they didn't take advantage of that opportunity. I think to like he should have been more cold and calculating. And then when you cut out the whole opening sequence of the film, that kind of causes some issues too. So
yeah, which was going to be Frank in the Gulf War, which we can bring up a little bit. Like, is it ever clear what it is Frank Castle does in the comics? Because there's some where he's a veteran, there's some where he's a cop, in this one he's the FBI agent.
It depends on which version, honestly, because sometimes he's a veteran, sometimes he's a cop. I know in the Punisher show he was also like an army vet that like his team was like experimented on. He wasn't, but like something like happened, like where it's like a trigger kind of thing. It's varying degrees of like usually he's some kind of veteran or he served in some kind of force he was in at some point. It's never clearly defined usually, outside of like the Max run.
Yeah. And also, like, on that note specifically, like, the reason I bring it up is I didn't need to see Frank in the Gulf War, but why I bring up having his service history, like, why that's important and deserves, I think, more than just like a throwaway line that one character makes one time in this movie, is that, especially if this is based on the Garth Ennis run of the character, the whole reason that Garth Ennis had Punisher like in Vietnam and be a Vietnam vet coming home, or at least one of the many reasons, is because it's like Frank is bringing that war with him. You know what I mean? Yes. That goes into his damaged psyche, that plays into his trauma overall and why he does the things that he does. And we just don't have that. Again, he is as charming as Thomas Jane is, he's just too fucking nice in this film. Like, he doesn't have 1,000-yard stare. He doesn't have that cold, the war following him back home and manifesting in the way that he like declares war again on all the crime around him.
Yes. Well, I would like to talk just briefly before we get into like film reception and stuff like that, is just sort of the cultural neutering of the Punisher over the last 25 years in general, because you have the Garth Ennis, Jason Aaron runs, which are incredibly violent and cynical and funny and just everything you would want from that character. Yep. And then, as I mentioned earlier, he starts to get reintegrated into the Marvel universe. And I don't know if you guys remember, but like around the Marvel Now, it was basically when Marvel synergy with the comics was becoming a big thing. Yeah. But they had those They had those new Punisher comics, which instead of you would see the villain and they'd be talking, and they'd go into a building, and then there'd be a blank, there'd be a still panel, and then the building would explode. And it would cut to Frank, and he'd be like, don't ever mess with America, or don't mess with the Punisher, or whatever. But the Garth Ennis run, it's very different because you have him literally pulling mobsters' teeth out with pliers as they're sitting there screaming. And it just has a different feel to it. And as it started to get reintegrated into the Marvel Universe, as the MCU became the driving force of Marvel Comics, the Punisher has gotten more and more and more whittled down to the point where they made him into like a cosmic Ghost Rider, and then they made him into something with martial arts or whatever, and now he's just gone.
Well, he's also Frankenstein briefly.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember. Okay, like the early 2010s Punisher comics, I remember enjoying to a degree because it was him essentially taking on like a disciple kind of character, like someone that was like, she was like a cop too, that like her partner or something was killed, and like she kind of helps him commit all of his crimes basically, and that like leads to like some problems with other heroes, and I kind of like that stuff. But yeah, then it started to evolve into like Frank Castle is Frankencastle, or he's fucking War Machine, and it just, or Cosmic Ghost Rider and all this crap, and it doesn't fit at all for the character. And I do want to say, like, man, like circa 2015, like that fucking one comic where he like, before the new Fantastic Four movie was coming out, and he blew up the cast of the Fantastic Four movie.
That's like, exactly the run I was thinking of.
That's kind of in bad taste, guys. It's a little much.
Well,
just because you're pissy you don't own the Fantastic Four at the time.
Yeah, it's not that funny either. No. And again, that's one of those ones where he'll blow somebody up, but he won't cut their nuts off. Like, he won't. He's neutered. He's not neutering people. But yeah, I literally looked up the last run, which is written by Jason Aaron, and he's a talented writer. I really love him. But the last thing to feature Frank Castle was he was consumed by the evil of the hand. And he's with ninjas, and they also change his logo, which I'm just going to say, like, I'm pretty sure they did that just to get away from the association of that logo, now that it's been kind of co-opted by like cops and stuff like that, which to me is,
which actually is funny because like I don't even think they're doing that on the new show. Even he still has the logo, I believe, or the logo is, or I think the logo might actually be co-opted by police in the show. I've seen a set photo where I'm like, oh, so.
Well, I just think that's, and I don't have any confirmation for that's why they changed the logo, but they did get rid of him and change the logo, and it's like, you really have to stick to your guns, because this character, just because something can be misinterpreted does not mean it needs to be changed.
No, yeah.
Case in point, Taxi Driver, right? One of the Punisher's biggest influences. Yep. Just because people can look at the Punisher and go, oh, he's badass, oh, he's that, does not mean that you need to then neuter that character just because some people might misinterpret it. Mm-hmm. Because the Punisher, for anybody that reads him that has a modicum of
self-awareness,
what's the right word? Media literacy. Yeah, they're gonna look at him and be like, okay, I'm really glad this guy knows how to pick guilty people. I'm really glad that he's good at finding the actual mobsters, but he's a psychopath. Mm-hmm. He is a terrible, terrible, terrible person.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it just takes a little bit of, like I said, media literacy, but more importantly, I think just self-awareness, you know what I mean? And especially during that period of time that you're referring to, it's absolutely important to stick your ground and not cede ground to losers and like psychotic cops, because there was a big moment in like our own cultural history around that time period where like cops were adopting the Punisher logo, and again, like all those like wrapped around Oakley types were in, kind of as the far right, that subculture was like rising in the country, becoming more prominent, guys were adopting that. But you can't let losers take that. You know what I mean? You can't let them.
It's an extreme overreaction to like, oh, because someone took it that way, we have to get rid of this thing. It's like, no, that's not what that means. It means that person under there doesn't fucking know what they're watching or listening or reading to. You shouldn't bow to that. You shouldn't kowtow to that. I remember when the fucking show came out, when the Netflix show came out, and a big mark against it was like, oh, it feels like it's like just an incel fantasy. And I'm like, that's not at all what Punisher is. Like, if you fucking know anything about the character, that's not what it is. He is directly against those kinds of folks.
Well, the best thing about the Punisher is he appeals to that part of everyone's brain where they see something really terrible on the news. Somebody commits some horrible atrocity against against some innocent family or whatever, and they go, "Man, I really wish someone would just take a gun and blow this person away." But that is wrong. Like in your it's morally gray at best.
I'm someone who like, really loves like the Netflix Punisher show. I fucking adore that. That's like one of my favorite Marvel shows that has like an overarching narrative deal. Like I really love it. And one thing I love that it handled is like, yes, there is like a military subplot deal where it's like that's kind of the driving force, and obviously, you know, he's anti that government infrastructure, but also at the same time, a big part of that first season is there's this character who is like this like military vet who becomes like kind of a loser loner type who just like, you know, he goes home, lives with his parents, stays in his basement all the time, and what he ends up doing is planning to bomb like I believe he's like bombing, like doing like a Boston Marathon kind of bombing deal essentially, and he does it, and then what happens is that he gets his comeuppance. And I'm like, that's exactly what Punisher is. Yes, he is a power fantasy, yes, but he is specifically the character you think of when you think of like, that is horrible, I wish that person would get what's coming to them. That's what he is, essentially. He is the extreme version of that.
Yes, exactly. And I always say this before, and this will be another episode, I promise, but what is wrong with something being a power fantasy? If you can't explore that in fiction, where can you?
Mm-hmm. No, I agree.
Fiction is infinite and it is all encompassing. So it can encompass power fantasies. Dirty Harry is a power fantasy because people were frustrated by the fact that they couldn't really feel safe. You know, look at gun sales in the 70s because of how bad the crime rate was, or because of Son of Sam, right? All of these small business owners are buying guns. Women are cutting their hair in different ways because they're worried about the victims of Son of Sam. This is all happening in that culture. And that's the roots of this character. So just because he's a power fantasy doesn't also mean he's completely right.
Yes.
Either.
That's a huge part of that character for sure.
I think it's just an acknowledgement of like, you know, as we're exploring these feelings with this character, like that's what Frank is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a vehicle of, as Andy mentioned, it's the like climax, and it's the expression of like that libidinal kind of like gut feeling of like, ooh, I see injustice, and it's like I wish somebody would do something. Like Andy said, I wish somebody would just fucking blow that guy away, which I think is very human, and most people, whether they want to admit it or not, have that you know desire. And then you know the ideal that you're supposed to realize is that Frank is the expression of you blowing somebody away, and then the come down of being like, oh fuck, I just blew some guy away, and the consequences of that, and exploring like that feeling of like that bloodlust that jumped out in that initial moment, and then the consequences of that afterwards.
And Frank as a character, and this is why he doesn't really work in the larger Marvel universe, I think, is Frank as a character, he is taking that step to do that thing. You're like, oh, I wish someone would do that. He's doing that. But then you have to check yourself and be like, where does it stop? And he doesn't stop. That's the problem always with Frank, with Punisher as a character, is that he just keeps fucking going and emotionally turns himself off and becomes a fucking serial killer, essentially. Yeah, he's killing horrible people, but he's ruining himself. Where does the line stop? Where do we eventually stop and go like, you can't do that anymore?
Well, he starts killing, you know, he'll kill Ted Bundy, right? Yeah. But then he'll also kill a junkie who pulls a knife on him, and he could easily incapacitate with his military training, but he just blows him away. You know, and
also because why when cops co-opt that symbol, that's not a good thing, fellas. Don't do that. That's not the
exactly. But you know what? And that's my other point too. And this is just a cultural thing too. But if the Punisher didn't exist, those types of people and those cops would just be spray painting Travis Bickle or Dirty Harry or Rambo or RoboCop or any of these things on, or Judge Dredd, any of these characters
that
on there.
It's just I can do whatever I want and kill whoever I want.
It's just because the Punisher is more realistic and is using real tactical gear.
And let's face it, cooler. So
Well, you know, I would say that to button this point, the thing that we can summarize Frank Castle is Frank Castle is not Luigi Mangione. He is Waluigi Mangione. You know, it starts off good intentions, blowing away the right people, and then he just takes it a little too far, and he starts, you know, capping the wrong people. So that's Frank. That's exactly. But I will say before we wrap up things. Sorry, Marty, go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, and again, like I'm going to keep glazing this because I love the Netflix Punisher. That's like my favorite adaptation of the character. I do get the primal love of just seeing John Bernthal screaming and beating the shit out of some guy with his fist as as just this guitar riff is going on in the background, guy going, "And you take my love." I love that. Like, I'm down for that. So we're cool with that too.
Hey, look, I love John Bernthal. I got to check out this show. I remember watching the first season and really enjoying it, so I gotta check it out again. But I will say before we kind of come to our kind of ending points, I will say I think it's important for us to touch on the tone real quick of the movie and whether or not we think that works. I think personally it does not. I think this film is too silly. I'm just going to come out straight up and say I think it's too silly. I don't like the apartment buddies. I think they're charming in their own way. They just don't fit with what's going on here. And the film is not grimy enough. It is not nearly grimy enough. I need way more like just in the mud kind of shit, which is ironic because we're in fucking Florida, in this film. And there's just, it's, to me, the tone is just way the fuck off. Frank is way too nice. These bumbling, goofy ass characters, I'm sorry, as there's some charm to the supporting cast, but they're goofy and silly as shit. And outside of the Russian scene, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? When I saw that, like, the fat guy, and then I saw the, like, the quintessential 2000s alternative dude, I was like, what fucking movie am I watching here?
Their names are Bumpo and Spacker Dave. They get
Bumpo, like, what the fuck are we doing here?
It's funny in the Garth Ennis comic. It's funny in the Garth Ennis comic. But,
it's funny in the Garth Ennis comics because he strikes that tone where, like, Garth Ennis has like all that, like, his like fucked up humor, like throwing a woman who got her arms bitten off by a polar bear into a bulletproof glass multiple times till it shatters. That's the kind of shit, like, Garth Ennis get down for, and those characters fit in that, so I understand where they came from, what they're doing, but like how this film handles it, it's just like, what, you don't give me enough of the psycho shit to justify these weirdo characters,
I think a big detriment to the tone is the score, to be honest. And it's a very beautiful score, but it's so melodramatic, and it's so like it doesn't really evoke the Punisher to me. I'm going to be honest. Again, it's good music. It's not annoying. It's very well composed, but it doesn't evoke the Punisher. It's very westerny, which I get. You could make the argument this is a modern western, but but that like it doesn't. You need something more. Because this is 2004, so it would have been a little early for this, but you need something a little bit more like the Drive soundtrack. Like you need like that sort of.
See, that was before everyone found synthwave. So,
I was gonna say, if we're sticking with the times, dude, I would have happily taken some golden age, early aughts, like industrial, like, and even like with some new metal in there. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, just give me some shit like that.
Soundtrack.
Give me some chunky shit, bro. Like that would have been way better than this.
Yeah,
this time, I can't believe I couldn't see, lived in the dark, that you would never follow me. We need that. We need an Evanescence sequence. That should have been as he's suiting up to take on like Howard Saint at the very end, like the whole, all like a punishment and all that, getting his shit together. We need to do a cut of that.
We're gonna do a No More Talking Productions cut of that when this episode drops.
Yeah,
but
the tone was the biggest thing for me.
I agree with the tone, and I think I brought up, like, I do like the Neighbors cast. I do. Rebecca Romijn being in this, of course, is fun because she was Mystique in the X-Men movie, so that's cool to have her around. Her character, I think, her performance is good. Her character, I think, is the weakest point of those three, just because she's the one that gives too much hope to this character, to Frank. Yeah. She just exists to essentially be like, oh, you could have a normal life, if you just go with me. And I'm just like, it's too much. He needs to be completely shut off from everybody. And when he's interacting with anybody else in the apartment, it's by shit going, like him fucking being thrown through the door, basically. Not him just like, oh, okay, I'll go have dinner with you,
In the comic, her character is a much more mousy, like, she does not look like Rebecca Romijn.
No.
And they have this great moment where she knocks on the door and the Punisher answers, and she's got a plate of cookies, and she says, oh, I made too many of these do you want some? And he, in his mind, goes, if I take the cookies, she might come back for more affection and become more, you know, like want more from me. But if I don't take them, she could have an emotional breakdown and like and bring
We've all been
attention.
there, friend. We've all been there.
Yeah. And then the next panel, he's sitting in his apartment alone, like eating the cookies.
That's
great.
perfect. That's a perfect sequence. That could have been adapted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that is what I'm like missing so desperately from this, is because I had a feeling before I learned from you lovely guys, I had a feeling this was based slightly on Garth Ennis's run, because I was seeing elements and characters that were like familiar, but fuck me, man, it didn't give me the edge or even just the griminess I was looking for. I was looking for that, honestly, the griminess of like the early 2000s, like the filter. I was looking for that kind of greenish tint, you know, for some scenes like in the city, and like having it just look like fucking gross and like just have everything be dirty and trashy. And I didn't get that, man. It was too fucking clean and bright and fucking Florida-y.
A lot of it just looks like CSI. Like a lot of the daylight.
That's
looks
what it was.
Yeah.
You nailed it. That's exactly what it fucking felt like. God damn it.
Yeah, there should never have been a sequence that took place during the day after the family got murdered.
Yes.
Just,
Yeah.
you know, like it should always be perpetually 3:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
But
It was
if we don't wrap this up, it will be 3:00 in the morning.
It was yeah, it will be, yeah, for both of us. It was a successful film though. Like it did okay at the box office. Not enough to greenlight a sequel, but then it made like 10 million in DVD rentals its first week, which is insane.
Because this is something you can sell for $5, not for a $15 movie ticket.
Yes.
I know tickets weren't $15 back in the day, but you know what I mean? This is very much a really good direct-to-video movie insofar as if it's Friday night and you're at Hollywood Video and you've got $3 to spend and you go, oh, they made a Punisher movie? Absolutely, you're going to roll the dice on that. Are you going to spend, you know, are you going to spend $10 of your money plus concessions to see this? Probably not. And that's the thing is, Martin brought up the home media sales were good enough that they greenlit a sequel with Hensley and Jane returning. Hensley had promised that it was going to be in a much more gritty urban setting, not Florida, and that Jigsaw would have been the villain. I think, I don't know how you guys feel, but I think the sequel probably would have been much better, because he probably would have had a little bit more to work with, money-wise, and...
Based off the budget of Punisher Warzone, which was almost exactly the same as this one, I kind of see why they started to fall off it, honestly. But I think it would have been better just because it would have probably inherently had a better villain and hopefully a better actor performance with the villain, which is what it needs. And if the goal was to make it grittier, which Warzone is, by the way, if they went for something like that, not cartoony gritty, but like actually like dirty fucking wet city streets and all that and blowing people's heads off with a shotgun, then yes, I agree with you. I think it could have been a better film if they had been given that second chance. Unfortunately, it does sound like Hensley and Jane dropped out because of creative differences, which usually means producer oversight and that kind of thing, or them going like, oh, we don't really want to go that way. We want to try something new because, you know, Iron Man just came out or whatever.
But we do have a great epilogue for this, in that Thomas Jane did return for the fan film Dirty Laundry, which is my personal favorite thing ever adapted of The Punisher. I absolutely adore it. I honestly propose to you guys we should probably just do like a half-hour, 40-minute Heroic Efforts episode just on this short.
Absolutely. Sure.
I would love to talk about that. Yeah. But just to briefly go over it, it has nothing to do with Marvel. Thomas Jane made this purely out of his love of the character. Ron Perlman's in it. It looks great. It looks like this movie should have looked. Everything we're describing about The Punisher 2, how it could have been better, is in Dirty Laundry. And it's like 10 minutes long. It's so good.
It's Ari Shankar, who's a pretty well-known producer who does a lot of like if you're a fan of this stuff, you have similar taste to us, then you're probably well aware of Ari's work because he produces he's done Castlevania. He did this whole bootleg universe, which this Punisher Dirty Laundry is a part of.
It's
where
Adi,
these like
it's Adi Shankar, by the way, just to, not Ari.
Oh, sorry, yeah, my apologies, Adi Shankar. But he produced like the bootleg universe, which has like Venom, it has Punisher, it has like these different characters that are not fucking Power Rangers that are not associated with IP holders, but they're exactly what, if you're a fan of them and what you would think like, oh, it'd be so sick if they did this type of movie. that's what these short films are. They're all fantastic. So I definitely recommend Adi Shankar's earlier work, checking that out, because it's incredible.
And I will say, like, as I've enjoyed his stuff as a producer, I think he is actually one of the more creative producers that are out there doing like cool, low budget, gritty stuff. He's an interesting fella. I like his interviews and whatnot. I've liked a lot of the stuff he's worked on because he's been a producer on The Grey, which is one of my favorite films ever with Liam Neeson. He did Dread, Killing Them Softly, A Walk Among the Tombstones, which is also fucking great, by the way, if no one's seen that. Machine Gun Preacher, which is a lot of fun. But yeah, he also was involved with the Castlevania show and the recent spinoff, and motherfucker did the Devil May Cry anime that's coming out pretty soon. And let me tell you, if you're gonna do a Devil May Cry anime and the opening credit sequence is fucking Limp Bizkit's Rollin', I'm on board 100%. But that's the thing, is like, he gets the tone, I think, of Punisher. He gets it absolutely, and Dirty Laundry is a prime example of that, because it's got the dirt and the grit that we wanted in this movie, and I feel like I agree with Andy, would have been there in Punisher too.
And it's fucked up.
He also did Venom, Truth and Journalism, which is the Venom movie that we always talk about that we would want. Directed by Joe Lynch. Great director who deserves more recognition. But yes, the Dirty Laundry, essentially, when I saw that drop in 2012, my mind almost couldn't wrap around it. I could not believe. I was looking at it going, this has to be funded by Marvel. There's no way someone made this on their own. It's so good. And the fact that it has Thomas Jane and Ron Perlman in it. So good.
So fucking good, man.
Yeah, we'll do our own episode.
Yeah, we can do a whole episode on that, and we will. But yeah, it's so fucking good. And it could, I remember when it came out, I'm like, oh my God, I think Punisher's back, and then I had to wait 5 years for a show.
Yeah, yeah, and all the comics went downhill very quickly.
Went down the hill very quickly at that time. Yep.
Yeah, but that's the positive note to end this episode on, is that Thomas Jane did play the Punisher in one of the best Punisher things ever made, and that is Dirty Laundry, which is a sequel to the Punisher.
Yes, and he beats the fuck out of someone with a Jack Daniels bottle. So
multiple someone's with a Jack Daniels. I literally just watched it before we got on. It's so fucking sick.
And I do want to amend something I said earlier. I completely forgotten there is a 4K of this movie out. Unfortunately, it's out of print and worth over $100 because it was a Best Buy exclusive. So either you can slam down $75 for the fucking steelbook on eBay, or you're shit out of luck because it's not even on like streaming in 4K. So if you want to put the money down, it's there. I only assume it went out of print because Lionsgate's having a really bad couple of years. So,
well,
Martin, you know you're going to spend $100 on it.
Okay, listen. I totally have 3 tabs open right now. One's for the Punisher 2004 Steelbook, one's for Punisher Warzone Steelbook because it's like $40, and then there's totally a bootleg Blu-ray copy of the Punisher series on Blu-ray. So yeah, guess what I'm spending money on.
And if you could do that, you could be like Marty and drop a dime bag to get all that, or you could watch it for free because it's a certified Tubi movie.
Yes.
But you know what else you can do, ladies and gentlemen? You could also tune in next time for more heroic efforts. And we want to thank you so much for joining us on this episode. We hope that instead of feeling punished, you feel like you were in a castle living like a king, because this is a great episode and this is a great movie to check out. It's an okay movie, but it's a fun time, especially if you watch it on Tubi for free. Get some friends, get some beer, get some pizza. It's a good time around. But with all that being said, we hope you enjoyed this episode. You can follow us as always at
@the_superguy on Instagram and Twitter.
At Only McFisherman on Twitter and Instagram.
And Nick Talamante and Monte Nix at X and Instagram, respectively. You can also follow us at No More Talking Productions on all of our socials. And we hope that you do, and that you will check out our next episode when we talk about more heroic efforts. Until then, take care, everybody.
See y'all later.
And in time all things shall pass away in time.